long before the arrival of dwarves, elves, and humans, the exclusively female Dryad people dwelt in the forest of Brokilon, with some legends claiming they were as old as the trees they protected. These forest nymphs of the north mated with males of other species like elves and humans to produce female children, though the physical characteristics of their fathers were sometimes passed down, allowing for diversity of hair, eye, and skin color. Though romantic relationships did sometimes occur with those selected for breeding, they considered mating and childbearing serious endeavors, and so mostly viewed males as tools for reproduction. In addition to their love of nature, the Dryads enjoyed music, were skilled healers, masterful sorcerers, and expert archers, able to shoot accurately from 200 feet. In addition to their slender frames, natural stealth, and incredible speed, Dryads also wore clothes and painted themselves for camouflage, making it near impossible to spot them in the wild. Forbidding the use of fire or felling of trees, Dryads employed a rare moss to produce light and built homes by using magic to shape surrounding vegetation as they desired. A close-knit people ruled by a wise and powerful queen, these forest nymphs were fiercely territorial, yet even so allowed other species like leprechauns, pucks, and all manner of wild beasts to inhabit their lands, as long as these creatures did not interfere with their society. However, their relationship with the migratory peoples of the north was more complicated, as some, like dwarves, considered them savages, while elves were mostly allies, sharing their love for the natural world. The elves may even have built the city of Cra'ag-an within Brokilon, though it was later abandoned and fell to ruin. As for the human species, they emerged as the Dryads' greatest enemies, with hostilities erupting after the first landing around the year 760 AR. Believing these nymphs were monsters, humanity hunted them and stole their forests, eventually resulting in the outbreak of war in the 11th century. Though the Dryads defended themselves the best they could over the next 2 centuries, the areas of Burnt Stump, 8 Mile, and Owl Hills were all conquered and deforested, resulting in many of their people surrendering to the invaders and learning to live in relative peace with humans. Yet the Dryads within the Queendom of Brokilon were determined to fight until the last woman, rejecting any notion of capitulation while refusing to acknowledge human victories, settlements, and borders. Considering all lost lands still a part of their territory, they continued to attack enemies in these regions whenever possible. Yet in spite of their courage and determination, the centuries-long war with humanity left them a shell of their former selves. Losing so much of their population, they were forced to take drastic actions for the preservation of their species. Whereas they once only selected the best and most worthy males for reproduction, their reduction in population and increasing hostilities with humans forced them to accept anyone available. Worse still, there was a time when the idea of transforming a non-Dryad woman into one of their kind was only occasionally considered, but by the 13th century it was a regular occurrence, kidnapping all females who wandered into their forest. This was done by mutating their minds and bodies with the water of Brokilon, an enchanted drink which made the subject forget their past while adopting the traits and physical characteristics of the Dryads. Once transformed, these naturalized nymphs were almost indistinguishable from their true-born comrades, except through their sweat, which retained the scent of their former species, whereas purebloods were known to smell like willow leaves. There was also a difference between age groups, as younger girls often lost their memories permanently, while older females sometimes recalled portions of their past lives. Though they killed most males who entered their forest, these intruders were often warned to stay away with multiple arrow shots as they approached their territory. Yet their attempts to avoid killing lessened as the centuries of war went on, with the Dryads no longer sending multiple warnings, but instead shooting a single arrow as a notice of trespassing before sending a second lethal shot to those who would not depart. This sometimes led to the death of innocents, like children who had no intention of harming their forest, but did not understand their warnings. Not only did Dryads kill those who came into or near their forest, but they also actively sought out their foes by sending allies like the human female Milva into nearby lands they considered part of Brokilon in order to lure groups of men into a trap. On at least 4 separate occasions, the huntress Milva pretended to be an anti-Dryad crusader seeking would-be scalp hunters for an expedition into Brokilon, promising a chance to wage war against the forest nymphs, but instead led them to a pre-arranged location where they were slaughtered, resulting in the deaths of at least 100 men. The never-ending campaign against humans then amplified during the Second Northern War, when the Dryad Queen Aithne sided with the scoia'tael rebels against the Northern Kingdoms, allowing them to use their forests and resources to slay many of their hated enemies. Among the various stories and legends surrounding the Dryads of Brokilon, one of the most interesting came from their involvement in a meeting of destiny between the famous witcher Geralt of Rivia and Child of the Elder Blood Princess Cirilla, whose relationship resulted in lasting repercussions affecting the future of the entire continent. Having once helped lift a curse from Urchion of Erlenwald, eventual husband to the Princess of Cintra, the Witcher invoked the Law of Surprise for his payment, asking for that which the prince had but was not expecting. This turned out to be his child when they learned the princess was pregnant. Although this meant their daughter Ciri was destined for the Witcher, Geralt did not believe in destiny and eventually decided not to take her from the royal family. Yet as fate would have it, they met by happenstance when the girl was around 10 years old, as they both arrived in Brokilon Forest at the same time. Although few males were allowed in Brokilon, Geralt was a friend to Queen Aithne and was therefore chosen as a messenger by King Venslav of Brugge, who sought to forge terms of peace with the Dryads. Around this same time, Princess Cirilla ran away from an arranged marriage in Verden, ending up lost and alone in the forest of Brokilon. Hearing the screams of a little girl, Geralt found her under threat and slayed the attacking beast. Seeing she was injured, he carried her on his back, and with the help of the Dryad Brienne, they made their way to see the queen. After Geralt failed to broker peace because the queen was unwilling to make any territorial concessions or recognize human borders, the Witcher's focus shifted to trying to save the girl Ciri from being turned into a Dryad. And while he felt a bond with this girl, who kept insisting she had a destiny, at this point he did not know her true identity, though Ciri figured out their connection when she learned he was a Witcher. Despite Geralt's arguments, Queen Aithne made her drink the water of Brokilon, held in a cup with elven writing that read, "The sword of destiny has 2 blades, you are one of them." Yet to their astonishment, the water did not affect Ciri, who still wanted to go with the Witcher, and unable to stand in the way of destiny, the queen relented, allowing them to leave the forest. Geralt, believing what she consumed must not have been the true water of Brokilon, also drank from the goblet, resulting in a vision where he at last learned the girl Ciri was the child of destiny he was promised a decade earlier. Throughout the vision, he once again heard a voice saying, "The sword of destiny has 2 blades, you are one of them." In the end, Geralt maintained destiny was not real, and so refused to take Ciri from her family, leaving her instead with Mousak, a druid and advisor to the Queen of Cintra, before riding off alone. Yet Ciri, who had been told stories about the Witcher for as long as she could remember, knew they would eventually be together, and yelled out as he departed, insisting she was his destiny. Love The Witcher or any other series? Then why not check out Audible, where they have the largest collection of audiobooks available. Sign up now and get a free audiobook and 2 Audible originals, or else give the gift of membership to someone you know. If you prefer to read your stories, then click on the link to the Kindle Unlimited plan and get access to as many ebooks as you wish. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the excellent Witcher audiobooks narrated by Peter Kenny, including the main novels and short stories which accompany the series. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Warden of the X, Christ Walder, the Crimson Shadow, Warden of the X, Sir Jeremiah Ironside of House Comsia, Knight of Iron and Ice, Fred Heartless, and Knight of the Sacred Scroll, Sir Elendil of Numenor. If you'd like to help the channel, you can sign up for membership through the YouTube Join button, buy merchandise from the store page, or go to patreon.com/civilizationx, where you can get early access to videos, vote on future content, and access the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.